dark night of the soul is probably the most important stage that humans go through. And they actually say that enlightenment cannot come to anyone until they've first gone through the dark night of the soul. Why they call it the dark night of the soul, I have no idea. They should call it the dark years of the soul. Because it's very seldom you'll stay in it for one night. It's where you feel as though your whole world has crashed. It can feel like ultimate depression, anxiety. You don't know what's up or down or right or wrong. But the dark night of the soul, even though it's a horrific thing when you go through it, when you come up out of it, each and every person who does walks a new path. They can never go back to what they were. The dark night of the soul is one of the greatest transformations and metamorphosis that the human race goes through. In some cultures, Native American and Aboriginal, they forced the dark night of the soul on people in order to put them through initiations, to see how they navigated through these horrors. So they would create trials and things that were extremely scary where one would normally freeze to push the person to move beyond what they fear. So they, like for example, they would send the young men out into the woods for a few weeks with nothing but a knife and a bit of water, and goodbye. Survive. So this brings on what? Fear and depression and anxiety and feeling disconnect from the tribe, not safe, all of the things. But in our society, we don't have to push this onto our children or ourselves. We go through it
every day.
Because of the way we're brought up, because of how we're taught that existence works and how people work, the way we're taught. And this is why they say depression has never been higher, ever. Also that it leads to every other disease on the planet, because most don't come up out of the dark night of the soul. They enter it and then they stay. One thing compounds onto the next, onto the next, onto the next, and they feel as though they're suffocating or drowning in there. And then that leads to a frozen posture, a frozen inner sense of self, which then does freeze the proper functioning of the vortexes and the chakras. If you're in the process of being in the dark night of the soul or have gone through it, there's a few things that are important to know. Number one, it's not natural to stay in it. It's a process. So realize it's not you. It's part of your life experiences, but try not to mask it or even minimize it. Instead, go within it, because there's things that you need to learn about yourself and about why you're at that stage of your life. Young people, when they hit that stage, a lot of them will drug themselves or drink themselves stupid, or right, and that's part of their way of escaping, especially children of abusive families or abusive backgrounds. This is what they'll do. They'll just drug themselves silly or drink themselves sick to cover it up, to try to pretend it doesn't exist. So children, it's very clear. With adults, it's not so clear how we're masking it. But it's important to not mask it. While you're going through, you need to feel. Because if you don't, you'll stay there. If you try to escape it and not be with it, then it will freeze you and it will hold you captive. So one of the most important things to know about the dark night of the soul is it's a transition. You're like that caterpillar in that cocoon. But don't stay there. You need to go through the process. It's an evolutional process. In monastic life, that was hard to say, they recognize the dark night of the soul as part of every single person's life who dedicates themselves to religion or spirituality, whatever way you want to say it. And they know that sometime between the time they're initiated as a monk or whatever, a priest, whatever it is they're going through, sometime before they become what they're becoming, they're going to go through the dark night of the soul. And they recognize it, and they'll actually support it. They'll leave the person in their room for weeks on end and just bring them food. They know that that's the process they're going through, so they respect it. They stand back and they assist the person by letting them process what they need to. In our society, we don't understand it. So we drug the people, we hide from them, we don't support them, we think they're crazy, right? So we don't have a system in place where we support the other through this, understanding it's a transition. It's not who they are. It's a transition. They're trying to birth themselves into something greater. And there's something that they have to see or accept about themselves. It's usually about acceptance of self. One of the hardest things you'll ever do is accept yourself. Accept your life just the way it is. To be happy regardless of what it is you're living or going through. Every moment to say, I'm okay. When you can get to the place of self-acceptance, that this is a big evolutionary leap.